fundamentals of Ielts listening. So what are we going to do today? So we're going to look at an overview of the listening test. Many of you will be aware of this, but it's good to just quickly go over it so you know exactly what's going to happen. 10 reasons why you are failing, and 10 solutions to those problems. So the Ielts test is, the listening test is quite difficult to teach online. The reason why it's quite difficult to teach online is obviously you need to be listening to things and you need to be looking at the questions. It's really easy to teach when you're working one-on-one with a student, but online it's a little bit more difficult. So I thought about what would be the best way for me to structure this lesson so that you could get the most out of it and so that you can improve your listening, improve your strategy. So what we're going to do is I've identified the 10 most common reasons why students don't get the score they need in the listening test, and then 10 simple solutions to those problems. And what we're also going to do is I'm going to demo how to use step-by-step strategies for any type of listening question. Listening is probably the area that students need the least help with, but some students do struggle with it, and it can also just help boost your overall score. And it's also just a good idea to have complete confidence and the least number of worries on test day. So what we want to do with this is give you complete confidence that no matter what happens in the listening test, your score is going to be guaranteed. You're definitely going to get the score that you need if you follow these steps. Obviously, we can't guarantee that everybody will get a band 9 or a band 8, but moving towards getting the score that you need and being very, very confident through practice and through these strategies that you'll get the score that you need. Okay, so let's look at an overview of the listening test first. So it's 4 sections and there are 10 questions in each section. The questions get more difficult as the test progresses. It's really important that you know that because what happens is a lot of students find it very difficult to cope with the last questions, and they really focus on those questions. So they get really stressed out and they're like, I really don't know how to do any of the last questions. I would kind of flip that around and I would say make sure that you're getting 100% in the first section and 100% in the second section and as close to 100% in the third section, and do as well as you can in the fourth section, and that will really ensure that you get the score that you need. If you spend a huge amount of time stressing out and worrying about a few questions at the end that you probably aren't going to get anyway, because they're really designed for the people who need a band 8 or a band 9, then you're sabotaging your progress. The test lasts for approximately 30 minutes. That might not sound like a long time, but the thing that you need to think about with that is how many times have you focused completely on listening to English and really focused. So I'm not talking about listening to songs or watching a movie or watching a TV program or a podcast or anything like that. I'm talking about complete focus and concentration for 30 minutes. That is actually a very long time in a foreign language. So be aware of that and be aware of that is a big challenge. Each recording is played only once. One of the big things, the big things that students get used to when they're learning English, when you're with a normal English teacher, what they do is when they're practicing listening, they will repeat things. They'll repeat the recording many times until you get it correct. The other thing that a lot of English teachers do is they will speak to you in a very slow way, and they will make sure that you understand every single word they say. Not a very natural way to speak. In real life and in the Ielts test, you will hear things just once, so you have to get used to that. And you'll have 10 minutes at the end to transfer your answers. So that's just good to know from a strategic point of view. So section 1, you'll hear a conversation between 2 people within a social or everyday context. Section 2, 1 person speaking in a social or everyday context. Section 3, a conversation between 2 or more people within an education context. And section 4, a lecture, normally on an academic subject. So it's good to be aware of these, but it's also good to be aware that these test different listening skills. Listening and reading, you can break those down into different sub-skills. Whenever I deal with students in my VIP course, we talk about that a lot, that reading is not just reading, listening is not just listening. There's lots of little sub-skills that you need to be aware of. For example, listening to a lecture requires different skills to listening to multiple people talking at the same time, because they're just two different styles of speaking and they require different skills. Also, the different contexts that you'll be listening to, normal everyday social situations. If you are used to listening to podcasts and listening to TV programs and YouTube clips and things like that, where lots of people are talking within a social context, that might not be a problem for you. Or if you live in an English-speaking country, that might not be a problem for you. But if you just are not used to listening to people in these everyday social contexts, that might be a problem for you. Section 3 and Section 4, more academic type contexts, if you are listening to lots of TED Talks, for example, that will not be a problem for you. Or if you are attending university and you're listening to academic lectures, that might not be a problem for you. But if you never do that, that might be a bit of a difficulty for you. So it's good to be aware of the different contexts and the different situations that you'll have to listen to. So problem number 1, here's a lot of reasons why you're not getting the scores that you need. This sounds really, really obvious, and you might be like, Chris, why are you even wasting my time with this? The main reason why people don't do very well on the listening test is they don't do any listening. This is pretty obvious, but probably the number one reason. So when I deal with my students, when I sit down with them one-on-one, if they have a problem with the listening test and they're consistently getting low scores on the listening test, first question I ask them is like, how often do you listen in English? And most of the time, if they're being honest with me, they'll say, oh, I listen to a little bit of music, or I listen to, when I'm out, I sometimes hear a little bit of English. But when do you actually sit down and listen to a movie or a YouTube clip or a TED Talk or a lecture? Probably not very often. If you want to improve your listening, listen. Sounds very, very simple, but extremely effective. Reason number 2, you listen passively and not actively. So some students who are getting, 6 or 6.5 in the listening test, and they say to me, but Chris, I'm always practicing my listening. I listen to movies, I listen to songs, I listen to YouTube all the time in English. And I say, well, you're not really listening. You're listening passively. You're not listening actively. The test requires you to do specific things while you are listening. Therefore, listening passively will not help you as much as doing something while you are listening. For example, if you have a problem with vocabulary and you're just watching lots of YouTube clips and not really thinking about any of the new vocabulary that's coming up, and then you compare that with a student who is really focusing on synonyms, really focusing on paraphrasing, really focusing on guessing the meaning of new words from the context, and they're actively doing that when they're watching TV or watching movies, compare those two students. The student who's sitting with popcorn in the movies and just thinking about it very passively, or the student that's sitting there and taking notes on the new words and guessing the meaning of new words. They're two completely different students. So if you want to fix things within your repertoire of listening skills, or your vocabulary or your grammar or whatever it is you need to focus on, actively focus on those things, and it's really, really going to help you. Obviously, that requires extra work, and you have to put away your popcorn. I'm sorry about that. After you get the Ielts test, you can go back to chilling out and watching Netflix or movies or whatever you want to do. But until that time, you're going to have to do a little bit of work. Reason number 3, your spelling is wrong. If you don't spell the word correctly, your whole answer is wrong. So students get really upset about this, upset with me in class for some reason, but is that I don't make the rules. So I think that a lot of students think that this is a little bit petty. They're like, okay, I got the question correct, I know what it is, but I just misspelt the word. Can Can they not just give that to me? I'm sorry, I don't make the rules. If you have a spelling mistake, even if it's the correct word, it's wrong. So if you a really good thing to do is go and analyze the reasons why you got some questions wrong. So what I would suggest you do is do some listening tests and then correct them exactly how they are corrected in the real test. So look at the answers, and if you're making spelling mistakes, mark it wrong. If you're consistently getting things wrong because of spelling mistakes, then you really do need to work on your spelling and not your listening. So establish if that is a problem. If it is a problem, you need to work on that. Reason number 4, you don't read the instructions carefully. Again, this is something that a lot of you are going to be like, of course, I read the instructions properly. I always do that. This looks like a really simple reason and something you would never do, but everybody, even the best students that I've ever dealt with, even the students who are very meticulous and very hardworking and very careful, sometimes they get things wrong because they didn't read the instructions properly. You must do this. Again, go back and analyze your mistakes. Do some practice tests under exam conditions and analyze why you made the mistakes. Did you make the mistakes because you just didn't read the instructions carefully? If that's the case and you're getting multiple questions wrong because you just didn't read the instructions carefully, you should be very, very, very happy, because it means that you can boost your score almost immediately by focusing on understanding the questions and reading the questions carefully, following the instructions and doing what they say. So see these mistakes that you're making as opportunities to improve. Reason number 5, your vocabulary is just not wide enough yet. Your vocabulary can improve, but if you are struggling to maybe go from a 6, 6.5 to a 7, 7.5 or an 8, could be vocabulary. Very, very common. The listening test is as much a vocabulary test as it is a listening test. The listening test is actually a listening test, a reading test, a writing test, a vocabulary test, all at the same time. But vocabulary is a huge, huge component of it. If you don't understand the meaning of some words, or you don't get used to being able to accurately guess the meaning of some words from the context, you're really going to struggle. If you are completely unaware of synonyms and paraphrasing, you don't know that one word is a synonym of another, you're really going to struggle. So for many people, with the listening and the reading test, they don't need to work on their listening skills or their reading skills, they need to work on their vocabulary. If you want help with your vocabulary, go and check out the video and the bonus video that I've given you in this course, all about how to improve your vocabulary, and you can actually combine your reading practice and your listening practice with improving your vocabulary. Reason number 6, you don't listen just once. So this is not your fault. This is because most English teachers, when they're practicing listening, they will let everybody listen 3, 4, 5 times. In real life, people are not going to repeat themselves 3 times. If you're listening to a lecture and your professor says something once, it's not like you can put your hand up and say, sorry, can you please repeat yourself, because my English teacher always played things 3 times for us. You will have to do this in the real test and in real life. So get used to it. Do not make your, how would I put this? Do not make your preparation too easy. There is always a temptation to make things a little bit too easy for yourself when you're doing your practice. When you're doing your practice, you're listening to things many times, you're getting a high score, and then you make it so easy for yourself that on the real test, you fail. Most cultures have the saying that probably comes from the army of like, do the hard training before the war and then the war is easy. It's the same with IELTS. If you think about it that way, do all the difficult things, do all the hard work before the test, and then the test will be easy. If you do it the other way around, you're going to get into trouble. Reason number 7, you can't predict. So a lot of the listening test is predicting what is going to happen, what is going to come up. So based on what you read in the question, you have to predict what is happening. This is a skill that you need to develop. If you do not develop this skill, same as like a golfer or a footballer or a boxer, there are certain skills that you need to develop. If you don't practice them, you're not going to be do very well in the overall competition. Many of the questions require you to predict the answer before it comes up. Get used to dealing with this. You could do this when you're watching a TED Talk or a YouTube clip or a movie. Think about what they're going to say next based on what they've said already. Or you can definitely do it by doing practice Ielts test, because the Ielts listening test is just full of prediction. Reason number 8, you can't hear the words. So very, very simply, you cannot, if you don't understand what the person is saying, you're not going to be able to answer the question. Native English speakers do not speak like robots. They connect words together, and you have to get used to this. So, for example, if you're listening to an elementary or pre-intermediate or intermediate, if you're in an English class, the teacher might talk to you like this. Or the recording, if you're listening to recording, people speak very, very slowly and very, very clearly. Now, you might think that that is helping you, but it's actually doing the opposite. It's harming you, because when you move to an English-speaking country, people do not talk like that. So instead of saying, do you want to go to the cinema, they'll say, do you want to go to the cinema? Do you want to go to the cinema? They link all the words together. It's called connected speech. And a way that you can overcome that is something I call micro-listening. So what I would do with my students is I would play them one sentence, like, do you want to go to the cinema? And I would say, okay, listen to this multiple times and try and break down what they're saying. Try and write out the sentence and try to identify the links in what they're saying and how they connect to speech, and then try to mimic that. Connected speech is part of pronunciation for the speaking test, so you can improve your pronunciation and you can improve your listening by focusing on connected speech and trying to improve your connected speech through micro listening and mimicking. And that's a really advanced technique that really, really helps. But what a lot of students will do is they will just say, I have no idea what they're saying and I'm not going to try. I mean, if that's your attitude, you're never going to become a very advanced English learner. Other students are like, okay, I have no idea what they've just said, but I know that if I really try and focus on it and really work hard to try and understand them through micro listening, I'm eventually going to be able to both understand what they're saying and sound more like a native English speaker by connecting words together. Reason number 9, you don't pay attention to signposting. So what's signposting? Everyone does this through signposting language, intonation, or even sentence stress. So especially like a lot of students complain that they don't know how to deal with a question with a map on it, like labeling a map. And throughout that talk, often you'll get a question where, for example, it'll be someone giving you a tour of a university or giving you a tour of a library or something like that. And what they'll constantly do is, through signposting language, intonation, and sentence stresses, they will show you where they're going with the conversation or with the talk through this signposting language. So they might say something like, following on from there means that they are ended one part of the talk and they're going to start another part of the talk. And if you analyze the IELTS speaking test for these types of questions, the listening test, I'm getting my tests mixed up again, what you'll find is a lot of this signposting language and intonation and sentence stress, and just helping the listener understand where they're going with the talk or with the conversation. So being aware of that, especially for labeling maps and things like that, is really, really helpful. Final one. The reason why you're not getting the score you need is you treat all questions in the same way, and we're going to get into this in far more detail in the rest of this lesson. There are many different types of listening question. There are many different types of reading question. If you approach every single one of those questions and in the exact same way, you're going to get into a lot of trouble. So each of the different types of question requires a different set of skills. It's a different situation. So if you are applying the same strategy to every single question and they're all different, you're going to get in a lot of trouble. So there are several different types of question, and they all require a different set of skills, therefore a unique strategy. So with all of my students, what I do is I give them a separate strategy for each different type of listening question and each different type of reading question. And all they have to do is learn that strategy, apply it, practice it, and then in the real test, they use that strategy to help them through the questions. So all I'm trying to do is just make it easier for them and give them a system that works, that I've tested over years with students, and I've got them all down exactly the way that students need to do them for each different type of question. So let's look at one. We obviously can't look at every single type of listening question and give you a strategy for every single type of listening question, because the video would be 10 hours long. So what I've done is I've just shown, just to show you how this works, and then you could maybe try and do this yourself for free, or you could just try and figure it out yourself if you want. But what I'm going to show you is a popular question on the listening test, something that students have asked about, and I'm going to show you how these step-by-step strategies work for this type of question. So here I've took this from the official Ielts website. So here's a typical multiple choice question. Choose the correct letter. The type of insurance is economy, standard, premium. Customer wants goods delivered to Port Home Depot. Many of you maybe have done this question before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this question and then show you how I would help a student with this question. So what I often do with students is I say, go and do some practice tests and analyze the questions and tell me which questions you're very, very strong in. So which questions are no problem for you at all. And then also tell me which questions are you getting like all of them wrong or most of them wrong. And that's how we strategically approach things. And what we do is we target those problem questions. So there's no point in working on questions that you get right every time. Just work on the questions that you really need help with. So this is the advice that I would give my students for multiple choice questions. So this does not apply to the other types of questions. This is just for multiple choice questions. Obviously, read the instructions. That's well, I say that this is unique to multiple choice, and then the first one applies to them all. Sorry. Every single question, read the instructions carefully. Move to this question as soon as possible. So in the different sections, if you see this question, move to it quickly, because there's going to have to deal with it, and there's going to be a lot of thinking that you're going to have to do. So move to this question as soon as you can. Do not sabotage the rest of your test by focusing on one question that you're not sure of. In a test with lots and lots and lots and lots of questions, if the fifth question is causing you a lot of problems, and you spend the whole test worrying about that question, that means you're sabotaging the rest of your test. So if you have a problem question, just guess it or leave it and move on. Move on to keep moving through the listening test. Then you need to look at the differentiating keywords. So what does that mean? So if we look at these different choices, what we need to do is think about the differences. So economy, standard, premium. So economy and standard, they're both kind of synonyms of each other. So if we think about that, there's a big difference between economy, standard, and premium. Premium means you get more service, costs more money, it's more like a VIP type of service. Economy and standard are kind of the lowest standard if you're given a choice of different services and they cost the least amount of money. So it's really important that you think about the difference between the meaning of these different ones. All right. Same with here. Port Home Depot. All right. These mean three completely different things. port is going to be somewhere beside a river or beside the sea or beside an ocean where ships come in and deliver things. Your home is your home, where you live. A depot is a central building, like a central warehouse building, where companies like Amazon.com or whatever big company you have that delivers things in your country, where they keep a centralized place where they keep lots of goods and then they deliver them out there. So being aware of the different types of answers here, but most importantly being aware of how they are different from each other is really, really going to help you. And this will only take 1 second, 3 seconds to just look at these and understand them, rather than trying to understand them in the middle of everything. Okay, so look for differentiating keywords. If you're not sure, move on. Okay, so if you get a listening question, and okay, so this is question number 9. So there are a huge number of questions that are going to come. And if you spend your whole time just going, was it economy or was it standard? Was it economy or was it standard? Oh no, I'm going to fail my test. Oh, I better get this one. What happens is you're so worried about that one and you don't move on that you get questions 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 and on wrong because you just run out of time and you get mixed up. It would be better if you just said, okay, it's either economy or standard, I'll just guess that one, and then move on. So what you're doing is you're giving yourself a better chance with the questions that come next. All right, so don't focus too much on one question. Remember that you get a score for the whole test, and one question is not going to make a lot of difference. So guess if you have to and move on. We've already talked about that. Remember synonyms and paraphrasing. All right. So remember that. Let's look at this. Premium. So the person might be talking about VIP or the highest level service or first class. So like first class, the highest level, the most expensive. These are synonyms and paraphrases of premium. All right. So the person might not say premium. The person might say VIP or first class or the most expensive one, or they might just be talking about different levels, the highest level. You have to be aware of this. If you're just thinking premium, 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 I'm looking for premium, I'm listening for premium, and premium doesn't come up, you're going to be completely lost. So again, always be aware of those different things. Get used to reading and listening at the same time. This is a skill that you need to develop. You need to develop the ability to read and listen at the same time. If you are not able to do that, you're really, really going to struggle. How do you do that? Practice tests, listening and reading at the same time, practicing those skills is really going to help you, and developing those skills is something that is absolutely crucial to do before your test. Not doing it for the first time in the test. And start slow and build up. This might be a little bit overwhelming for you right now, and you might be thinking, God, look at the number of things that he wants me to do. Like, and the number of now he's going to start talking about strategies, and this is just one question. Like, how am I ever going to do that? Like, remember how you learned how to ride a bike or learn how to drive a car. You didn't learn how to drive a car by going onto the motorway and driving at 100 miles an hour immediately. You weren't with your driving instructor and they just said, okay, right, now we're going to drive at 100 miles an hour. No, you started off in a car park with no people around you, so you didn't cause any accidents, and you took everything very slowly and slowly built up your confidence. That's what you need to do, not just in the listening test, but every single part of the test. And if you're listening to this right now and you're thinking, but I want a band 8 next week, and you have done the test 17 times and you keep getting a 6, but you're saying, I want to do the test and I want to get an 8 next week, you're being very, very unreasonable, and you're being very, very unrealistic. And you might think that that is a silly thing to say, like someone failing 17 times. I've dealt with students who have come to me and said, I failed my test 14, 15, 16, 17, 20 times, but I want to do the test next week and get a band 8. Maybe it might be better, instead of doing the test another 15 times, to take some time and slowly build up your confidence and learn the things properly, and then get the score that you need. Okay, so here's a strategy. Again, not for all listening questions, just for multiple choice questions. Number 1, read the instructions. Number 2, read and understand the questions. Number 3, highlight the keywords and think about differentiation. Number 4, think of synonyms and paraphrasing. Number 5, predict if you can. Sometimes you'll be able to predict, sometimes you won't. Listen to the whole section, all right? Listen to everything they say. Put a tick beside the one that you think might be correct. Number 8, keep moving on. So all of this might seem like, yeah, I know all that or I do all that, but what you want to do is you put that into a system, put that into a strategy. Just like when you're learning how to drive a car, what you do is you put your seatbelt in first, then you check your mirrors, then you check this, then you check that. So it's a system, it's a strategy that you follow each and every time. So if we look back at this question, so you'd read the instructions, okay, so I just choose letter A, B, or C. Okay, so I'm not going to give the answer. So if the answer was economy and it says choose the correct letter and you write economy, you're wrong. All right, so that's an example of you just not reading the instructions. So read the instructions, know what you have to do. Okay, so I have to pick A, B, or C. So next thing I have to do is I have to read it and understand it. Huge number of students do not read or understand anything. So type of insurance chosen, okay, I know what economy means, I know what standard means, I know what premium means. If you don't know what those mean, guess them. Okay, any differentiation between these? Okay, so economy and standard mean the same thing. Premium means something completely different. It's kind of the opposite to these. Okay, I understand the differences in meaning of these. All right, so what's the next step? All right, synonyms and paraphrasing. So premium could be first class, could be VIP, could be this, could be that. Economy, what are some synonyms and paraphrasing of that? Prediction, can I predict what they're talking about? Okay, so I can't predict this, but what I can predict is they're going to be talking about insurance and they're going to be talking about different levels of insurance, the quality of the policy. So I'm thinking and I'm predicting, and that makes it much easier for you to identify your the answer when it comes up. Okay, so then you've got to this stage where you're listening to the whole section. Put a tick beside the one you might think might be correct. Remember, listening is different from reading in that you will be given time at the end to move your answers over. So you don't need to decide then, you can just put a tick beside the answer. And then what you do is you keep moving on. So if you were really stuck on this question and you were not sure between economy and standard, just put a tick beside both of them. You're not sure, and then move on to this one. Time is your enemy. The recording is not going to stop. It's just going to keep going on and on and on and on. So you have to get used to that. So hopefully that helped you understand the fundamentals of IELTS listening. And the next stage is doing a practice test. So what we've done is we've created a full practice test for you, and all you have to do is just click the download button below and you'll be able to download a PDF document with step-by-step instructions on how to do the test and how to send it to us. So do the test under exam conditions, and you'll be able to do it in the same way that you'll do it on test day, and then you'll be able to send us your results and we'll be able to give you the answers and allow you to get some feedback on your listening, because there's no point in learning the fundamentals and learning the principles if you don't actually put that knowledge into action. So do it under exam conditions and you'll get to know where you are, get to know what your score is, and get some feedback on your listening performance. Look forward to seeing it. Bye-bye.